Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Our live stream. We are here to help you sound great from home. I want to thank you all for tuning in today. Thank you all for remaining a part of the YouTube community and the YouTube Space community, which is bringing you this workshop today. This is the Sound Great from Home virtual audio workshop. I do want to say that the views expressed today are those of the presenters and myself and not those of YouTube and Google. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, I want to provide you guys with some valuable info. We are coming at you guys from the YouTube Space today. We are providing a multitude of virtual offerings right now. I'm actually going to share that with you right now in the chat function of the live stream. Those of you who are joining us from the live stream, keep those questions coming in. I will be monitoring that chat as your MC for today. I will also be providing you guys with some links like the one I'm providing right now, which is our online Space's website. It's a way for you guys to keep in touch with what we're doing at the Space and the other virtual offerings that we have right now. I noticed some of you are joining us again. You are here also with our live stream from Look Great from Home. So really excited to see you guys back and staying involved. At the Spaces, before COVID and when we're back, we operate 7 studios in 6 countries to provide everything you need for your creative process. This includes any resources you may need, from sound stages to cameras, lighting, editing suites, to workshops and community events. We hope to inspire and provide opportunities to meet fellow content creators and artists like yourself, with the ultimate goal of collaboration. But while we're working from home, we're now providing virtual workshops like the ones you guys are participating in today. And you can see those at the website that I provided. I'll be providing those links kind of periodically again throughout, so don't worry if you guys miss anything. And in addition to today's workshop, we have the YouTube Creator Academy. This is another place where you can learn anything from growing your channel, reaching a new audience, pivoting, expanding the audience that you do have, monetization, but also we do have a lot of production elements. So production skills, beefing up anything you may need to work on. And if you guys have any extra questions after today's workshop, it's a great resource. So I'm going to be providing that link for you in just a second. But before I do that, I want to get into today's instructors. So these are audio engineers that are going to be helping us out today. We have Mr. Joel from the Los Angeles Space. Joel, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Samir?
I'm doing very well. I'm excited to have everyone join us here. Good morning or good afternoon, wherever it is you may be joining us from. We also have Chris from the New York Space. Chris, how are you doing today?
Doing well, doing well. Hey guys, good to be here with you.
Awesome. I want to give them a little opportunity to know what you guys do on a day-to-day basis at the Space, or maybe what your day looks like right now. So Joel, how are you doing these days?
I'm doing great. I'm at home right now. I kind of miss our studios and all the toys that I have there. But I got to bring some of those home, and I'll play with those in front of you a little later on. But I've been at the Space, started about 6 years ago, and I came from a background of first music and audio for many years. I've done film and television, including things like Jeopardy, Jimmy Kimmel, Ellen, and came into YouTube, and this is the best gig I've ever had. And I don't mind being at home because I love talking about audio, and that's what I'm able to do today. So that's a good thing for me. Chris, why don't you tell us about you?
Well, all right. Well, I haven't been there as long as you guys. I'm fairly new. I've been working over on the East Coast, Space New York, for about a year now. But I have worked in a production, specifically audio, for about 5 or 6 years. I've worked with Complex and Yahoo. So I've been around, but definitely one of the better jobs that I've had is working here with you guys.
Cool. So I'm gonna send it back to Samir, and we've got a poll question to start for you.
We do. Thank you, Joel, for prompting that. For those of you who saw, I see we're getting some answers in already. If you want to join us, I'm going to put that link in there right now. But for anyone who also has a phone, is familiar with QR codes, we are taking poll questions today. The first one we have is, what is keeping you from sounding great? This is just a way for us to kind of get the temperature of the room and see what problems you guys are dealing with. So if you do have a phone, feel free to use the camera function. Your link should pop up when you scan that QR code. I've also put a link in the live stream chat, or if you want to just go to slido.com on a different browser tab, 1176 is the poll question. I think we can go, let's start seeing what results we have coming in. Looks like a lot of people feel like their microphone is not up to snuff. That looks like the question we're getting, but we're getting a good spread of answers. And I just want to reassure everyone, we will be going over all the basic topics, all the general broad topics. So a lot of these problems, all of them we'll be addressing today, but this is just a better way for us to know where you guys are coming from, where we may focus today's workshop. And also the questions. We want to get as many questions as you guys. We want to make this as useful as possible for you guys. This is who it is for. But just to get a feel for these instructors, Joel, what is your biggest pet peeve with audio?
These days, I think my pet peeve is the same as a lot of people's, and that's the preponderance of room noise.
Yes, Chris, what's the biggest audio problem you're seeing these days?
Definitely agree. Being in New York, hearing sirens and people chatting outside, you can hear entire conversations. It's crazy. So definitely just the room noise, environmental noise, the stuff going on around you.
Oh man, I'm excited to get into today and learn some strategies to get rid of that room noise. Guys, without further delay, let's just jump right into today's instruction. For those of us who want to keep joining on Slido, we'll have some other poll questions coming in, but I'm just going to hand it off to Joel.
Okay, so what we're going to talk about today is, and I see that a lot of people want to upgrade their mic. They feel like their mic is not good enough, but what we want to do first is make the most of that mic you have and teach you some things that are actually going to improve the mic that you have exponentially. There's basically two things we can do that are going to improve your sound a lot, and we're going to talk about that. Then we're going to talk about microphones in general. We will get in the weeds about microphones and about what microphones are good for what things in the kind of production we're seeing today. And then we're going to talk about recorders, the settings you can set up on recorders to optimize how they're recording, and maybe what kind of recorder is best for you. Then we're going to talk about monitoring and how that's the sort of secret sauce that's going to level you up one more notch as a professional. So let's talk about easy ways to combat bad sound. We're going to start off with a video that we produced that is something that will show you, and you will be able to hear the difference in little corrections we make as the video goes on. It'll start out with some bad sounding audio, and then you'll hear the corrections we make throughout the video. Things sound Wow, what a big difference that made. The room echo is much less, and I don't need subtitles anymore. Okay, I apologize. I thought I was muting my own mic, but I was muting everything. So we're going to go back and listen to this again. My apologies. Things sound pretty good right now, but this was not always the case. In this same spot, using the same recording equipment and the same microphone, things did not sound so good. I remember it well. Okay, I'm ready to start shooting my video, or am I? The sound is pretty bad. We better start fixing things if we want anyone to take us seriously. The sound is distorted. This is because the recording levels are set too high. Let's fix both these things by setting levels so my voice is bouncing around minus 18 dB. Green LEDs, no red ones. Better. Okay, maybe just a little bit better. Maybe it's because the mic is backed by the camera, and the power of my voice bouncing off the walls is almost as loud as my voice itself. Let's bring the mic in closer and see what happens. Wow, what a big difference that made. The room echo is much less, and I don't need subtitles anymore. Do we sound great yet? Not quite. The room echo is still out of control. Even though I'm not in an acoustically designed space, there's a lot of things I can do with just what I have lying around to improve things. But let's add some stuff back and see what happens. That made a difference, didn't it? It was not only visually boring in this room, it sounded terrible. Now I've returned all the furniture and knickknacks I've removed to make my point, but I added back other things as well, because even what sounds like a normal room to our ears still sounds kind of echoey to a microphone. I tried to cover everywhere there was a hard, flat surface with every soft, plush object I could find. Turns out there's an actual use for throw pillows. So we're done, right? Wait, what's all that noise? Have a listen. Oh, it's been getting stuffy in here. In between takes, I turned on the ventilation system and I forgot to turn it off. Let's do that now. Now we sound good, even very good, but we don't sound great yet. What you're hearing is just raw production sound. We're not talking about post-production today, but it's worth mentioning that the final sheen of great sound comes during editing. Now my voice is a bit more full, more present. We've added dynamic compression, a little bit of equalization, added just a touch of noise reduction to clean things up. Now I can make my video. Okay, so you kind of saw a progression of bad to good sound, and now we're going to break that down a little bit so you can kind of find out what you can do to achieve that. So we're going to talk about three things. We're going to talk about distortion, distance from your microphone, and we're going to talk about three different types of noise. Now, when your viewers perceive your sound, when they hear your videos, they're going to assign you kind of a tier. We all have been raised with production, and even though we don't necessarily know audio, we know different levels of professionalism in what we hear, and especially what we hear. Think about the way that dogs react to sound. They react emotionally, and we're kind of the same way. We react emotionally. So how do dogs react? By barking. We react by clicking away when we hear something that offends us or that we just feel is not worthy of our time because it's not a great production. Distortion, even if it's just for a second, just for a little bit. In the video, I made things kind of over the top, distorted all the time. But even if we distort just when we get a little bit loud, we like laugh or yell or something like that, if they hear distortion, they're going to realize they're going to assign your video a tier of lower production, because everyone knows what commercials sound like, what games sound like, and what homemade videos sound like. So this is your opportunity to get into that realm of commercials and games and movies and television, to have people give you that kind of credibility. And distortion is sort of the most obvious way of people knowing that you're an amateur. So we don't want to be an amateur. When we distort sound, what is happening is that we're cramming too much sound into our recorder. We're giving it more than it can take. You see this blue representation of a sound wave. It's going into the recorder. The recorder is of a certain size, and it just shaves off. It slices off bits of the wave that it can't take. Not only is this loss of the information, parts of your voice that are going away forever, in its place, it adds frequencies, high frequencies. These are the baby screaming, nails on a chalkboard kind of frequencies that make people click away, or at the very least kind of say, oh, this is not, this isn't really that big of a channel because they have these audio problems. So we kind of mitigate the distortion by setting proper recording levels. And this is what we do when we first start recording. Our voices bounce up and down. You want to see your voice bouncing around minus 18 decibels. If you are fortunate enough to have a recording device that has meters that shows you this, minus 18 dB is about where you want to be. If you don't worry. There are other ways of getting good levels. If you have meters and don't see that 18 dB, it's about halfway. You want to see the meters bouncing back and forth or up and down about halfway. If you don't have those, a lot of times recording devices or interfaces will have a green LED that flashes when it sees signal and goes red when that signal clips or distorts. So what you want to do is give your loudest sound. And when you sound check, this is important, you want to sound check to what are called show energy. You want to have that, hey guys, energy when you do your sound check, not 1, 2, 3 test, because that's what you need to protect for. When you have louder sounds, coughs, laughs, yells, you want to make sure that those are no greater than minus 6 dB. That is the most you ever want any sound to be. So when levels are too high, they're going to distort. But when they're too low, they're going to have noise accompanied with them. And we'll talk about that in a bit. But you're sort of in between these, a rock and a hard place, the noise and the distortion. If anything, you want to be more conservative than not, but be aware that if you're too low, you're going to add noise to your sound. And we'll talk about that in a bit. But first, keeping your microphone close to your voice is probably the best advice I can give you for shooting at home. This is the thing that I wish I could tell creators more than anything, is to get their microphone off their camera or not use their camera microphone and get it within a certain distance of their voice. This is because your voice is going to sound better closer, but your room noise is going to decrease exponentially the closer you get it to your voice. So I want everyone to do something right now. I want you to take your elbow and kind of put it in front of your face. And this is silly, but this is exactly why you're going to remember this. Kind of wave your elbow around in front of your face. This is the maximum distance you want a microphone from your voice to sound good, and to sound good within the balance of your acoustically imperfect, probably, shooting space. Now, this involves maybe the fact that your microphone's on camera, maybe your mic is out of camera. If you can see some of this, my elbow is moving out of camera. So that's where we want to place that microphone. But it is important to move your microphone close to your voice. The exception for this would be shotgun microphones. If you're using a shotgun microphone, that can be a little bit further away. Shotgun microphones are specifically designed so you can have a camera shot without a microphone in it. And typically, a shotgun microphone is above you, but it can be below. But I want to stress that these microphones aren't magic. Just because you have a shotgun microphone and you've mounted it on your camera doesn't mean that it's going to sound great. If you take your arms right now and extend it out fully, this is the sort of sphere you want your shotgun microphone to exist in. If you're of average height, you should be able to touch your microphone. If you're a little bit shorter, it should be just beyond your grasp, and that's at a maximum. So let's talk about three kinds of noise. First, we're going to talk about hiss. If you've had a sound system and you've turned it up all the way and kind of listened to the speakers, this is sort of an old school test to see how quiet a sound system is. You turn it up and you see what you can hear. It's usually kind of a hiss. All electronics generate their own noise, and this includes microphones, this includes cables, your computer. Anything that sound passes through electronically is going to generate a layer of noise, and all these things add up. So we mitigate this by having those proper recording levels, staying out of that mud, as we call it, out of that noise floor, and having like a minus 18 dB center to our voice, so that when we boost it, it doesn't increase the noise as well. Then we have room echo. Now, this is the classic right now. We're going to talk more about this and room acoustics in a second, but room echo is basically the sound from your voice bouncing off the walls and then back into the microphone. Again, the first way to mitigate this is bringing your microphone close. As you bring your microphone close to your voice, the power of your voice is exponential, and the power of the room echo is exponential in the opposite direction. So if you're beyond an elbow or an arm's length away, the room echo is going to be against your favor, and you're going to hear more of that, or at least the psychology of people's minds are going to hear more of that than your voice. The third kind of noise is environmental noise. The stuff that's going on around you. Kids in another room, refrigerators, AC. I'm next to an airport. These are all things that we, some of them are within our control, some of them are not. Listen with headphones, listen to your microphone with headphones, and listen to your room. You're going to hear things that your ears don't hear, because our brains are very good at filtering out the kind of non-necessary stuff. But microphones aren't like this. And when things get produced and sent through speakers to our viewers, they hear these things. So you need to hear them too. Listen with headphones. Listen, do you hear your refrigerator? Do you hear your AC? Do you hear your neighbors? Do you hear traffic? Some of these things we can view as being in our control. Some of them we think, well, there's nothing I can do about that. The things in your control, in your environment, you can make sure your AC is turned off. Make sure if it's kind of hot, you kind of really super chill your room beforehand, so you can turn it off and not start sweating too soon. Refrigerators are usually on their own breaker. If you have your electrical control panel and it's labeled, you can usually turn off your refrigerator all by itself. Now, if you do this, please put a note somewhere so you don't forget this. But it's a measure of control you might not think you have, but you do. Another measure of control is when you shoot. It may not seem convenient to you, but maybe to get the best sound, you need to shoot late at night or early in the morning when the traffic is low or the airport isn't really active. These are all things that that may not seem within in your control, but are. Now, let's talk about the acoustics, the sort of big thing we're all faced with. Bringing your mic in close is the big help, as you saw in the video. But another big boost to the way you sound is treating the room you're in. There are parts of your room that are on camera and parts of your room that are off camera. The parts of your room that are on camera, you can make more interesting and introduce objects that will also help with sound. But if you think of, if you imagine your video and if your camera were to pan around your room, you wouldn't necessarily want your viewers to see your whole studio. But microphones, even if they're close, can see your entire studio. So you want to hide that from your viewers. And you do this by treating your off-camera areas, especially by using padding. I think of it as a game. Your enemies are hard, flat surfaces. And in the architecture of today, walls, ceilings, floors, especially if you don't have wall-to-wall carpeting, these are all your acoustic enemies. And then you have your weapons. Your weapons are heavy blankets and quilts, curtains, rugs. Couch cushions are excellent to use because you can take them off your couch and your couch is still absorbing a bunch of sound, but now you can improve that. I've got a couch cushion up against my wall here and another one over here so that I sound more pleasant in this environment. And I'll tell you what else. I have dirty laundry on the floor behind me. Laundry is there's another person who does lighting and video stuff, and he makes use of laundry. Laundry can also be a great use in sound. Just spread it out on your floor if you have hardwood floors or hard furniture. Couch cushions, and your creativity is also a really good tool, a weapon against bad acoustics. Get creative. We're creative people, so use that. And you can use your creative powers in every aspect of production. So now I'm going to send it back to Samir, who's got a great quiz question.
Yes. Thank you, everyone who has been joining. I see a lot of you have been getting in there. Also, I really am impressed with this chat going on right now on the live stream. I see people asking questions. I see people answering other people's questions. We got a lot of activity going on. It's awesome. I see you guys asking questions about lav mics and shotgun mics. We will be getting more into those in detail, but please feel free to keep filling each other in. It's amazing. It's very YouTube of you guys. I love it. The question we have right now, though, is distorted audio most often comes from. I'm going to give people a little extra chance to join if they want to use that QR code, or just go to slido.com and use the 1176 code to join. But I did want to address some of the questions we have coming in. Let's see. I have them right here. Yeah, a lot of the questions are regarding maybe working on a smaller budget. I just want to give a shout out to the YouTube creator channel community tab for giving us a lot of these questions as well. Just want to let you guys know we'll be getting into these questions. A lot of people recording on their phones, a lot of the smaller YouTube channels or even the more experienced ones are still recording on their phones, but they want to try and get the best audio they can. Now, would this mean, is there a strategy to using the phone? Would the best strategy be to use a headphone microphone? I know a lot of people are using those, the earbud microphones. Would a lav mic? I know we're not giving like specific brand things, but just a direction folks can go in if they're starting out in a low budget.
I guess one thing to ask yourself is, how are you using that phone? Are you using that phone just to record audio, or are you using that to capture video as well? So with that changes exactly what kind of product you'll be using. Because if you're using it just to record audio, then there are tons of different devices that you can use to mic yourself up, lapels, lavaliers, things like that, that could help you get better audio. But if you're using it as a camera source, then you're going to be further away from the subject, which causes you to use a different microphone.
That makes sense. I think that also may address some of the other questions we've been having where folks have like the built-in microphone on the camera. And I think if they're using that, if they want to use some of Joel's strategies of having a proper distance, I think that's just up to the creator of, what they want to prioritize in that case. And if they do want to have a certain shot and have a better audio quality, it may necessitate getting an external microphone. And if you guys, there's plenty of affordable microphones online. So if you're working from home, you can still have access to them. We'll get into some of the general categories a little later on, but keep those questions coming. Let's see our poll results for right now. Let's see, distorted audio most often comes from, it looks like a lot of people are saying cheap microphones. I know from my experience, I have heard a lot of distorted audio come from very expensive microphones. Joel, Chris, what's your common experience with distortion?
Go ahead, Joe.
You go ahead, Chris.
I'll let you take this one. Okay. All right. So usually it's the levels. It's the way you set your levels, because even a cheap mic can do the job. It's about knowing the mic and knowing how to set your levels, just so you can play safe and don't distort. But how about you, Joe?
Yeah, the best, the best $10,000 rare Neumann microphone cannot, will sound distorted if you simply have the levels turned up. You can turn that very expensive microphone into less than a $20 lav that you got online. So levels are extremely important.
I love how we had one person who was holding off on their vote until we gave the right answer, and boom, now we got the majority. I love it.
They got it right.
Hard audience, guys. Let's move on with some instructions. We talked about getting into some microphones, and we have some more info coming up right now.
Yeah, so this is a really common question. What microphone is right for me? And we have to start out by saying, what do you want that microphone to do for you? If you think of microphones like vehicles, is it a truck? Is it a car? Is it a motorcycle? What is it you need it to do? Now, for the purposes of today's online workshop, we're going to talk about production. There's a whole world of music that is pretty complex and would take a whole other seminar. But we're going to talk about production, and we're going to break that production into three sort of categories of production, and that is podcasts, voiceovers, and on-camera dialogue. These are sort of the big three for production. We'll start with podcasts. Podcasts have a particular sound to them, and this gives its ownage to sort of old-time radio and the radio sound, that full voice sound where the sound of the voice has a bigger priority than the video. And what I'm going to do to you is I'm going to give you an example of a podcast microphone and then some other microphones so you can compare them. So we're going to start out. I'm going to talk into this podcast microphone. What makes this podcast microphone different is that it is a large diaphragm dynamic microphone. And what this enables you to do is to get very close. These microphones love for voices to be very close to them. And this gives you that podcast sound, that full sound. And we're going to talk about proximity effect in a moment. But first, what I'm going to do, since I'm doing this now, I'm going to give you sort of a tour of some different microphones. So you've heard the podcast kind of microphone, and what I've been speaking to you previously was a sort of more VO or voiceover style microphone. So let's look at some a couple other things. What you're hearing now is a shotgun mic. This is a microphone that is just over my head out of the shot. And what I'll do is I'll bring it into the shot so you can see it. It's just out of the shot. You can probably see that now. This is a shotgun mic, and it is able to kind of be a little bit further away and kind of reach out and grab sound, but we still want to be as close as we can. And by contrast, I want to show you the internal microphone on my computer. So this is what I sound like just in a meeting kind of microphone on my laptop. You can hear tons of room noise all of a sudden. This is mostly because it's more than an arm's length away, which is more than I recommend even for a shotgun microphone. So let's go back to this microphone. Oh, so much better. Phew. So let's go on to that. Voiceover microphones. Voiceover microphones are typically large diaphragm condenser microphones. These are microphones that are very sensitive. They're accurate. They're able to capture the nuance of your voice. They are not always practical in dramatic settings where you're moving around. They're good for voiceover where you have a controlled situation where you can control your acoustics, you're not moving around, and you can just read copy. These microphones are probably the best quality microphones you're going to find. If you are in a studio and you need to record a singer, this is the kind of microphone you're going to go to. Now, with these microphones comes, because they're so sensitive, there is an aspect that we have to be aware of, and that is using a pop filter. Now, pop filters, all they do is protect your microphone from vocal plosives. I want everyone to take their hand and put it in front of their mouth and say, poppin' and bumpin'.
Poppin'.
Popping and bumping. You should feel like a puff of air on your hand whenever you pronounce a P or a B. Just these two letters can mess up your sound, and this one thing protects against that. I'll give you an example. I'll take it away from my microphone. Popping and bumping. Popping and bumping. Hopefully you can hear the difference of that. VO microphones are so sensitive that that wind can hit their capsule and just sound terrible. So this is all that a pop filter protects against, but it's important. If you're using a microphone this sensitive and you are even once pronouncing a P or a B, this is what you need. So if you're on camera, you don't want to see the microphone. I'm showing you this microphone because this is an audio workshop. I want you to see it. But sometimes for your videos, you might not want to see your microphone. You might want your audience concentrating on what you're saying, which is more common than not. There are a couple ways of doing this. There's basically two ways of doing this. One is with that shotgun microphone that I was talking about, but a more common and probably a more cost-effective way of doing it is using a lavalier mic. And this is a mic that clips to your lapel or your collar, and you can use microphones. You can get microphones fairly cheaply that can plug into a phone. If you use an iPhone, there's an adapter like you see here. Probably the best solution for lav microphones is using a mini recorder. What a mini recorder does is it's simply a small little box you can put in your pocket, and that records your audio. So you clip the lavalier on your collar, the recorder's in your pocket, and it records the sound. The lavalier is close to your voice, which solves a lot of problems. And you can take that audio later on and drag it into your timeline, and it'll sound good. So this is kind of a basic on microphones and production, but I'm going to hand it over to my host from another coast, Chris, who's going to get into the weeds on polar patterns.
Thank you. Yeah, so I really want to talk to you guys about polar patterns because it really talks about finding the right mic for you. Polar patterns or pickup patterns, as you may have heard of it before, really talks to you about the radius in which that mic is most useful or essential. So for right now, we're going to talk about the three most popular ones, which is bidirectional, cardioid, and omnidirectional. So first, bidirectional. This is the mic that picks up sound from the front and the back, but not the sides. So if you look at this graph that I have here, you'll see it. And with these microphones, you'll mainly see those in radio stations, or have you seen like those old-timey microphones that announcers will use during like sport events, things like that? That's where you'll see those microphones. Also in a lot of podcasts. And what's great about these microphones is that it can be shared. So if you're doing a podcast and you only have one mic, you can share this with a guest or a co-host, and it'll be absolutely fine because it has that radius where you can be on either side and still make good use of this type of microphone. So then now we're going to go to cardioid. So in this graph, you'll notice that this type of microphone has like a heart-shaped pickup pattern. So it picks up everything in front of it, but nothing behind it. So as you can see on the picture to our left, these are our standard microphones you'll see during performances, vocal mics, things of that sort, because they're really good at picking up the performer and not the audience or the fans. So yeah, like I said before, just a really good vocal performing mic, really dynamic and can handle a live performance situation. So then now we go to omnidirectional. Now, this has a very huge pickup pattern, as you can see in the graph. It's just a huge circle. Now, these are your lavalier mics. So a lot of people like using lavalier mics because it's so compact, it's convenient. But one thing to really note is that looking at this pattern, this graph, it picks up a lot. So when you're using these mics, you have to be in control of your environment, which means that you have to know that, like what Joe was saying previously, be in control of your environment. Know what time you're shooting, because these things can pick up anything from your refrigerator, outside noise, your AC, things like that. These things are very powerful and very sensitive. Most commonly, you do see them in interviews like broadcast news, things like that. For the most part, me personally, I've tried to avoid using them in live situations because of if there's any sort of playback, these microphones tend to feedback because they're so sensitive. So now we're going to go to a figure of all the different polar patterns or pickup patterns that there are. So I already went across cardioid, bidirectional, and omni. So you'll also notice that there's a supercardioid and hypercardioid. These are all part of the cardioid family. One thing to note, I know that you see they have a pickup pattern that is also behind the microphone. It still has that heart shape, but it has a pickup pattern behind it. These type of microphones are considered a little more directional because the sides aren't as sensitive. So you'll see these type of microphones during performances. There's certain shotgun mics that have a hypercardioid pickup pattern. But then also to mention shotguns, because I know there was also a question about that. So shotgun mics also considered low bar mics or unidirectional. As you can see, they are even though they have a lot of circles and they seem like it can pick up a lot, these things are really meant to pick up exactly what is pointed at. So these things are very directional and are most commonly used outside because they're so good at picking up specific noises and specific sounds. So, all right, there you go. That is my lesson on polar and pickup patterns. And I'll pass it back to Joe.
Thanks. I'm going to actually redo the pop filter demo because it was pointed out to me. I've kind of have a lot of tech going on here, and I did not have this particular microphone selected when I did the pop, so it was useless. So let's just do it again very quickly.
Joel, you got too many microphones. You need more elbows.
No. So I'm going to say pumping and bumping. Now you can hear that. Almost like magic, pumping and bumping. It's gone. Okay, so moving on. Recorder settings made easy. Once you've kind of moved beyond your iPhone, and if you want to get into your camera or use a standalone field recorder, there's going to be some settings that you need to know. And these can be kind of cryptic at first, all these things you need, and you want to kind of just go with the defaults. But I'm going to sort of take you through quickly what settings you should have for your recorder or camera. You want to format your media to begin with. You want a clean slate. You don't want files that you had from an earlier shoot to worry about, to wonder whether you need or not to drag over. Just start with a clean slate. And you want to make sure that that stuff's backed up, of course, not just dragged into your laptop, but backed up on a separate hard drive. Your file format, you want that to be WAV or PCM. This is an uncompressed wave of like audio format, sort of the antithesis of an MP3. It's a little bit more in the file size, but relative to video, it's still very small. So you just want a WAV file or uncompressed format. You want your phantom voltage to be on. This is if you have a condenser microphone, which chances are you do in production. The exception would be a microphone like this that is a dynamic microphone. Check your microphone literature to see if you need phantom power. Now, if you have a USB microphone, this is entirely different. The USB bus powers your microphone. That's all taken care of for you. Roll-off is, what the heck is roll-off? You want to have your roll-off turned on. Roll-off or low-cut or HPF, which stands for high-pass filter. This is a filter that gets rid of rumble. Rumble is the stuff that goes on outside your house or apartment. It's people walking around the floor. It's the handling of your microphone stands, that low frequencies that don't have anything to do with production, don't have anything to do with your voice, unless you're a super bass. You want to get rid of that right away so you don't have to worry about it for the rest of your production. This is a common practice to have low cut or roll off turned on. Automatic level control. It's a function that kind of controls your levels. You can control your levels. You've learned how. Be a professional. Don't use it. Compression. Also, it's a more musical form of automatic level control, unless you're recording music. And even in very limited situations, do you want to record to that kind of thing. Your sample rate should be at 48K. This can be thought of as the resolution, like in your camera. For audio, 48K is the professional standard. Bit depth is the sort of resolution in the other direction between your quietest sound and your loudest sound. This allows you that headroom to adjust your levels, to protect against distortion and protect against noise floor. 24-bit is the professional standard. So here is a typical field recorder. If you want to sort of upgrade from your camera or your phone, this is sort of the next logical step. You can see that there's two microphones at the top. I recommend not using these. What you want to do is get a reasonably good microphone that has an XLR connector. This is sort of the standard for regular microphones that can plug in. These recorders have all the settings we just talked about, and they sound as good as anything for our purposes. They have all the resolution and the standards that you need, and they're relatively moderately priced, and kind of like the next step. This is sort of your next step up from an iPhone. And I'm going to give it back to Chris, who's got some great info on phone interviews, something we're doing a lot of now.
Yes. Thanks, Joe. So I know that, like what Joe said, we're doing a lot of phone interviews now. We're at home. We want to talk to people remotely. So I thought it would be best if I just added a little equipment list for a simple phone interview. So here we go. We got a laptop or phone. We have a TRS 1/4 inch to an 1/8 inch, which if you look to the right, that is the type of cable that I'm talking about. So you have the 1/4 inch and an 1/8 inch. The 1/4 inch is just it's a jack that's a little bigger. And the 1/8 inch is basically your standard 3.5 millimeter headphone jack that you see on any phone or computer. Then you have the recorder. When I say recorder, I'm talking about something like what Joel previously was talking about, something like that, because it gives you more control over the audio that you're gonna be producing, that you're gonna put into post. So when you're talking to that person, it gives you level control. It gives you ways to sort of EQ it and give your audio a little more balance. And then I also say headphones. Headphones are so important. I say you should use over-the-ear headphones, but if not, then of course in-ear headphones work, just because you want to be able to really isolate all the sounds around you and pay attention to the audio that you are recording. So now I'll go into some tips and tricks, which really just goes back into what Joel was saying in the beginning about noise and understanding environment. We're going to keep throwing this at you because it's so important during this time. So yeah, understanding your environment, so important. Just knowing what's going on around you, listening, being understanding. Sound check with your guest. Even if it's just a quick 5-minute task before you guys actually record, do a sound check. Actually, I would recommend even recording during the sound check, just so you can then listen to that pre-recording to know exactly what it's going to sound like out of your recorder. Sound check with your guest is so important. Now, so if possible, ask your guest to record as well. It's just one of those kind of safety options. So if they are able to record using any sort of note app, you can use every laptop and phone has like some sort of note app or recorder app where you can record conversations. It just gives you that safety, just in case the internet connection goes out, or just your audio gets a little wonky, something just failed. They have something to send to you, so you don't lose all of your audio. And then I feel like both hosts and guests should have headphones. In-ear, over the ear, whatever you have will be better, would work. But I do suggest that the host should have over-the-ear headphones. And I know that Joe will go more into it later on. But before we go, I just want to give you a quick trick that I've learned throughout the years. So if you're only recording audio, you can always use what I call the blanket method for cleaner audio. Now, this is not a fail-safe, but it is something. And it's going to sound crazy when I say it, but if you grab your heaviest blanket and put it over you and talking to the mic, you're actually creating a little bit of a soundproof area around you, because that your voice is not bouncing around. It's not bouncing around walls. It's hitting the blanket and not coming back and hitting your mic. So it's a good way to try to get cleaner audio and avoid that echoing and all the noise that Joe was talking about within our first segment. So I know it sounds crazy. I know, like, am I going to tell a guest this? I mean, maybe. But
get in the closet, dude.
It's a great trick.
All right, we got our next quiz question coming at you guys. We're running a little bit short on time, so I want to kind of breeze through this a little bit, just because I know the questions you guys have is what's most important. So let's just quickly, what is the best way to fix audio in post-production? Let's take a look at our possible answers and where people are coming in at. We got a lot of equalization, which does make sense. That is a part of post-production, but I think the principles we're trying to get across to you guys today, and this might seem like a little bit of a trick question, but let's see. And we are recommending monitoring during production. I know you guys are saying, you know, you can't afford a nicer mic, and a lot of people sometimes may rely a little bit on post-production. Post-production, a lot of times, is not free. It can end up being more expensive. It can end up being very time-consuming as well. Actually, Joel, can you do me a favor? And can we go back to your recorder settings? We had a lot of people who were interested in that, and I want to give them a chance to just take a quick picture of that, because a lot of people maybe those are just specific settings that they'll be using, so it's nice to have on hand. And a lot of people were saying maybe they haven't gotten into using.
I actually meant to mention taking a screenshot of this.
Please.
This is just kind of good info that you can keep for later and refer to.
Great.
I'm going to leave on this for a second. But yeah, talking about the quiz question, the best and all of the options, it was a trick question. All of the options will improve post-production sound, will improve your upload. But the best way to get good sound in post-production is a good, solid record in production, using all the things we talked about, keeping your mic close, treating your room, getting good levels. These things will all make post-production much easier and a better result.
Exactly. Let's just quickly get through the next section. We'll be talking a little bit about more about monitoring. Yes.
So we want to talk about monitoring. It is one of these things that is not very well. It's not often thought of. But your consumer headphones, I'm assuming that there's a lot of people who are just using the headphones that they use to listen to music for editing their videos and monitoring their records. These headphones are designed to lie to you. That's just the reality of it. They are made to sell better than the other headphones. They're made to sound better than the other headphones. They're made to sound pleasant and pretty. What you need is the raw, naked truth. And this is a different kind of piece of hardware. It's designed to show you what your videos really sound like. So you need to look for headphones, and I'm kind of assuming that most people are doing their work in headphones. There are monitoring speakers, but we're going to kind of limit it to headphones today. You want to look for professional monitoring headphones. And the conception is that you're going to have to pay more for these kind of headphones. This is not the case. Oftentimes, you will see the same sort of price scale for consumer music listening headphones as you will for professional listening headphones. There's a scale. It starts at about $100. If you spend $100 for what is labeled as professional monitoring headphones, they will give you the truth about what you're hearing. So we're going to go on to a slide that has a bunch of wisdom that Chris and I have accumulated, some tips and tricks. Take a screen grab of this. Yeah. There's some wisdom here. Many Bothans have died to bring you this information.
Yeah. For those of you who are in a rush, please feel free to take a screenshot of this and you can read it over in a second. I know that we're running up against the time. We'll stay a little later to answer any lingering questions. I know we just went over a lot, so if anything that just popped up, we'll try and get towards it. But for now, I just want to kind of close out, send you guys some more resources from us. For those of you who do have to leave, since we are running up on time, I want to just thank you again for joining us today, joining us on YouTube for the live stream. I want to thank the YouTube creator page. We do have a quick survey I want to share with you guys. If we want to just go to that last slide, we have a QR code. You guys can let us know what you thought about today's workshop. There's also a little URL that you guys can type in. I'm also just going to provide a link in the live stream chat right now. So please take some time, if you have the opportunity, to let us know what you guys thought about today's workshop. And we would love to get that feedback to know how we can improve on these live streams as we're going forward. And with that being said, I'll put that link in the chat and we'll go back to this QR code, but we can go back to that tip page right now just to give folks another opportunity to take a look at those tips and tricks. And then also I have just a couple questions, lingering ones that I know were asked from the community tab, and we also have some from the live stream chat right now. Thank you guys for being so active in that chat, by the way. Filming outside is something. I know we talked a lot about treating an indoor space. I know a lot of people are filming at home in a smaller space right now. I'm in my apartment. And we talked about treating the room, but when you're dealing with filming outside, are there any tips and tricks you guys can recommend to minimizing unwanted noise or maybe masking it?
A lot of times it's the same principles of keeping a microphone close, which outside usually involves using a lavalier. If you're using a shotgun microphone, that it would often involve an operator, someone who can operate a boom pole. But what we want to do is minimize the noise, but understand that when you're outside, the outdoors is a character in your video, and it's okay to hear some stuff outdoors. What we want to do is, again, keep the microphone as close as possible. That's going to kind of help the sound of outdoors. The other element outdoors we don't get indoors is wind, and especially using phones. Wind on a phone microphone is just about the worst sound I can imagine. I will click away from that video faster, or at the very minimum, mute the audio on that video as fast as anything. You want to use on any microphone when you're outside, any microphone, including a phone. There's kind of hacks for this. You want to use what's a wind muff, or what's kind of colloquially called a dead cat, a furry thing that goes over your microphone so you don't hear the wind. That's probably the biggest aspect of shooting outdoors, is protecting against that wind. And even a slight breeze can have that, and we've all heard it, that kind of sound that is so distracting from the story that we want to tell.
That's a great answer. Thanks, guys. Hopefully we were able to give you guys some helpful tips on how to film outside. I think we have time for just one more question. So let's see. I do want to go back to our YouTube creator community tab. Thank you guys for providing so many questions for us there, as well as the live stream. Let's see. This is one regarding background music. What's the recommendation balance regarding background music added to your voice audio? Are there any tips? I know a lot of YouTubers like to use that strategy, particularly with like video intros and outros.
Yeah, background music is really important. It can bring a flavor to your video, bring drama to your video. You can kind of tell people what emotion that you want to convey very, very succinctly. But of course, you don't want it to upstage what you're saying. You want your story, what your content is. So the short answer is to use your ears, just to listen to it with good monitoring, honest monitoring as you're editing, and get that balance in a sort of technical way. If you have loudness monitoring, you want your content, your vocal aspect to be between 22 and 18, minus 18 LUFS. This is a loudness component that you can research. And you want your music to be sort of minus 28, 30. But ultimately, you want to use your ears. Music in the background, if you want it not to distract from your voice, you want it to be more sustained components of music, less percussive. But again, trust your ears, use your ears to what is distracting or not from what is important. Yeah, and that's your content.
Thanks, Joel. And thank you, Chris. I want to thank both of you guys for lending us your time today and helping out the creators. I want to thank all the creators who submitted their questions prior to today, and everyone who joined us today. Thank you for everyone continuing to be a part of the YouTube Space community. I know a lot of you probably still have some questions. Maybe today's instruction maybe brought up some subjects that you'd like to learn more about. I'm going to share with you in that live stream chat again the virtual YouTube Spaces calendar for you guys to sign up for other virtual offerings that we have right now. And I'm also going to share with you what you may already be familiar with, but the Creator Academy is a great place to kind of beef up on any production skills or anything that comes to managing a YouTube channel. I want to thank everyone again, and I want to play you guys out. Have a great day. Have a great night, wherever it is you may be. And thank you.
Memories die on too hard. We were traveling miles and miles just to find an honest peace. We set out not a fire, no, we're calling.